long story short, we decide I'll have the surgery in May '08. So now I have a year of pain management. So my surgeon suggests that since I need narcotics still, I should go see a pain doctor. And at the time my mom took me, she was already seeing one, if you know what I mean, for her own injury. And that was just my first drug dealer in a white coat.
Welcome to the podcast. We're back. Welcome on, Erin.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's good having you. Thank you for your interest in the podcast.
Yeah. TikTok found me.
Yeah.
The algorithm.
I get a lot of people that's like, oh, I want to come on. And I'd like to have a ton of people on, but it's just it's a process and getting to know people
Sure.
and if they'll be a good fit or not. But
yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate the interest in driving all the way up here.
Yeah, we drove 3.5 hours, but we made a weekend out of it. So give me an excuse to have a vacation.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on, and I guess we'll get right into your story.
Let's
if you're okay with that. What's your clean day?
My clean day is April 23rd, 2016.
Wait, say that again?
April 23rd, 2016.
2016. So how many years is that?
7.
7 years.
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of time.
It's a lot, and then it's not, Yeah. It's 24 hours. It's just today.
Yeah.
You know, I heard in a meeting once that the person who woke up the earliest had the most clean time. And I kind of agree with that. We're all just as close to a potential slip as someone with 1 day, as someone with 30 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. It depends on that daily work that you put in.
But yeah, it's a daily reprieve, but like you said, it's daily work. And there are days, and there have been months for me in my season of recovery when I have been out of my mind because I'm not doing the daily work.
Yeah. You definitely can get there. You're not alone. You are not alone in that aspect.
I know.
Yeah.
So you want the good, bad, and ugly, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Where are you from? Are you from Florida?
No, I'm originally from Carmel, New York, which is about an hour northwest of New York City. So I had the fun of a small town, suburban life, but I also lived very close to one of the biggest cities in the world. So
that's always funny because if you're not that diverse in you're traveling, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm from a small place in New York, and people that don't know, they're like, small place in New York.
Yes, New York is actually a very large state. The city is at the very southernmost point of the state, but you have a whole huge state of beautiful, there's mountains, the Adirondacks, the Catskills, there's Canada's pretty close. There's a couple of, there's Niagara Falls. So New York has so much. I went to State University at New Paltz, which is one of the many state universities that New York has. But it's in the Hudson Valley, so it's gorgeous. Think beautiful fall leaves and...
Yeah, you get actual seasons there.
Oh, all 4.
Not like Florida.
No, that was definitely a culture shock. Moving here and getting we get 2 seasons, I would say. We get super duper hot, and then we get beautiful. Those are the seasons we get here. So that's where I'm from. And that is a good lead into, I'm one of 4 girls. So, I was raised in a really traditional family. Mom and dad both worked. Mom was a nurse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like you. Dad worked in IT. So, we were just a normal family. We did not have a lot of extended family at the time. And I say at the time because later we got more family. But we had my great aunt, and she passed when I was young. And then we also had my grandparents, my dad's parents, and they both passed when I was young. And then my mom's parents were gone. So it was really just us. My dad had a brother who had no kids. So growing up, I was worried a lot. And from like my youngest memory, I was worried.
Yeah.
Like sometimes people say you're born like this. I might have been, because I was born nervous. And my parents, just like any young couple, they were stressed and they fought. And now that I'm a young couple with kids, we get stressed and we fight in front of the kids. And so now I was so worried about that as a kid, man. And who knows, maybe I was born that way and I was born with like an emptiness already, but I felt that way. And I was always great in school, but I was never great enough, right? Like a 95 could have been a 100. And that mentality of more, right? Like I had to have more, I had to be better. I hit middle school and I gained weight, and that's another familial trait, Thanks a lot, mom and dad. I inherited obesity, addiction, alcoholism. But putting I was never a skinny kid, but becoming a chubby teenager just leads to general issues like bullying and low self-esteem. So you push yourself in other ways where you do excel. Like I was good in school. So academically, I was always at the top of my class. I was social. So I had friends. I played sports, not good, but I played field hockey and basketball in middle school. So I tried. I did not play sports come high school. I think I didn't even make the team.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, I can remember like not making the team and being kind of upset. Like
not getting picked.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just always felt like if I was just a little better or a little more. And, I was probably around 9th grade when my older sister was a senior, and, they partied and drank with their friends. And I just thought they were so cool.
Yeah.
And
where was you at in that range of, like, you said you have 4 sisters?
There's 4 of us. My older sister is 3 years older. So if I'm in 9th grade, she's in 12th grade. So she's a senior. I'm a freshman. The one underneath me is 4 years younger. So she would have been in like 5th grade. And then the one younger than that is 11 years younger. So when I was, let's say, 16, she was 11 years younger, so she was 5. So there was a big age range. But I started to drink and party like a normal teenager, I thought.
Yeah.
Again, I thought everybody did this. So I thought dying in a field of alcohol poisoning when I was 14 and told my parents I was at a slumber party was normal. And maybe for a lot of our generation it was normal, right? I mean, I can remember throwing parties when my friends' parents would go out of town or my parents would go out of town, and everyone would bring a bottle. And I mean, we would drink ourselves stupid to the point of just puking. And like the cops would come and everyone would hide, and I had hickeys all over my neck one time. The next day I'm putting cover up on so mom won't see. My mom busted us once having a party. The way she busted us was the next day. She drove me to work. I was working at a pool store. I was probably like 16. And she looked at my face, and I had little red specks all over my face from puking my guts out the night before. So she put 2 and 2 together that I had little specks, and she wasn't home the night before. We had a party. So, I graduated high school at the end of my junior year. So I was ready to go. And there were some reasons why I was ready to go. Some of which aren't podcast approved, but there were reasons that I felt mature in my mind, and I wanted to become a teacher. I loved helping people. So I did a lot of volunteer work in high school, giving back to the kids in my community. I taught religious education. I was a basketball coach. So I like to give back to my community, and I like to help kids. So I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I was ready. So I graduated early, and I went to college at 17. And, do I regret that? No, but what was I in such a rush for? You know, being an adult sucks.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe somebody tried to warn me. I'm sure there were adults who tried warning me and I didn't listen because I was, headstrong and certain I knew. But man, I should have slowed down. Nonetheless, I went to college at 17. I enrolled as a childhood ed major with a concentration in earth science. So I knew to get a good competitive job, you want to pick a subject that not everybody knows. And I hate math.
Yeah.
So the only other choice was science. And of the types of science, I liked earth science the most. So that's how I landed with that one.
Yeah.
Definitely not and the geology geeks that teach at New Paltz, shout out to them because they are geology geeks. These guys could look at a rock and just tell you where it was from and how old it was. And they just knew stuff. And I do not know how.
Oh, yeah.
But my college experience, I was spent drunk most days. So in college, every day of the week was something. So like Wednesday was karaoke night and Thursday was Thirsty Thursday and Friday was 3-2-1 Friday and Saturday was girls night and Sunday was football Sunday and Monday was trivia night and Tuesday I think we stayed home and recovered.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of socially acceptable partying and not everybody drank like me, but I drank. So and my crew drank. So I selected friends that were like me and that wanted to slam 8 or 10 shots of vodka before the bar,
Not drinking to have a good time.
No. There was a mission.
Yeah.
And we were going to achieve the mission.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would overshoot the mark and not even make it to the bar because we'd be barfing on the way. But man, did we think we were rock stars, just kings of the world, no fear at all. I was raped my second weekend of college at a frat party. Exactly what they say not to do, right? I hate beer. Yeah. Oh, here's some jungle juice. Okay. And so people will say well, why didn't you tell anybody or do anything or call the police? Well, I didn't want to be on an episode of Law and Order SVU. Seriously, that's what you imagine as a woman or a man for that matter. When you think of reporting a rape, you literally imagine Olivia Benson. Well, that would be amazing. # Mariska Hargitay. I love her. But I couldn't tell anybody, my good friend knew. But it was very much like an outer body trauma for me. So even I'm doing trauma work even to this day. And when you have a severe trauma like that, I compartmentalized it well. But it lent to my substance abuse in a way where I was able to just numb it with weed and alcohol. And I went to New Paltz, which is like the biggest stoner school ever. So weed smoke was like oxygen, everybody smoked. You smoked in the dorm. Nobody cared. The professors were stoned, a lot of them, because if they had gone to school there and now were teachers there. So it was that year, May 2007, that I had ankle surgery. I had had ankle surgery as a teenage girl for a sports injury. And so that was my right ankle. Left ankle, same problem. I twisted it drunk one night, actually, and re-injured the tendons. So I go and I have surgery May 2007, right at the end of my freshman year, and I'm prescribed Percocets. And I do the normal physical therapy, wear the cast, yada, yada. So it's about August now, and I'm still taking the Percocets. Now I'm on Percocet 10 milligrams, and I don't remember how many a day, but the surgery failed. And that happens sometimes. I don't knock the doctor for that. I'm not mad at him. It happens. So, we talked about it and the decision was made to have another surgery, a bigger surgery to fix it. but I wanted to go back to school. It was August now. So we decided to wait. And when I say we, I mean my mom and I decided to wait. Because I did most of my medical stuff with her since she's a nurse. And long story short, we decide I'll have the surgery in May 2008. So now I have a year of pain management. So my surgeon suggests that since I need narcotics still, I should go see a pain doctor. And at the time my mom took me, she was already seeing one, if you know what I mean, for her own injury. And that was just my first drug dealer in a white coat. His name was Dr. Mark Levy. I don't remember the name of the practice. I do believe he's a drug dealer, unfortunately. I believe anyone who prescribes the amount of narcotics that I was given at the age I was a criminal, because my dose just went up so fast, you know. And looking back, I'm sure I was saying like, oh, I'm in pain, or it's wearing off, or I'm sure I was, because I'm an addict. So of course I said whatever I said. I'm sure I did. But, you know, I also didn't know what I was taking was so serious. I certainly didn't know it was horrifically addictive. I didn't know. I knew I was high. Like, there was no illusions in my head that this stuff didn't make me feel good. I knew it did. It made me feel complete. Like, finally, that hole that I had had as a young kid who was nervous all the time was gone. And now I'm in college. Like, this is perfect timing. I'm confident. I'm 300 pounds. I don't give a damn that I'm overweight. I do not care at all, because I'm confident. And these little blue pills, because at this point, I'm already up to 30 milligram Roxys. And I'm like 19 years old. And I'm, you know, straight A student. And I work. And so I'm doing life, right? And the doctor said it was okay. And so for years that went on. I mean, I had the same boyfriend. I started dating James when I was freshman, so early on. And we dated all through college, long distance. He was older, so he had already had a job. And I just went on that way. And most people had no idea that I was on anything. I mean, my mother and family knew I took medication.
Yeah.
My friends maybe even knew I took medication. But I took medication, right? I mean, my doctor gave it to me. Now, at this time, eventually I get more than one doctor, you know, because I'm an addict. And so one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And so I was getting 180 from that one doctor, and that was not enough.
Wow.
And so I started seeing another doctor across state lines, you know, and I did things that I won't get into the details of, but I just did things like any addict would to further my need for more. So it was progressing, but I was now getting closer to graduating college. I was doing my student teaching with 6th grade and 1st grade. And so here I am, a student teacher, strung out on opiates all day, every day. I have no business in a classroom with children. But my doctor said it was okay, said I needed it. Because I had another surgery, right? So May 2007, May 2008, third surgery. This point now I'm on narcotics going on 3 years. And the doctor I see in New York City gives me 360 Roxys a month.
Wow.
And 100 Opana. So I have an opiate habit that is so huge. Beyond huge. And I do not even realize just how serious it is. So 2010, my mom got sober. And
Do like a 12-step program?
my mom?
Yes.
Yep. She did a detox, a rehab, a 12-step program. I kind of watched her hit her bottom and then get sober. And so I got kind of freaked out about these pills. So I decided I'm going to stop taking them. But I had gone to a 12-step program. I'd gone to NA, but I wasn't really going to work a program. I was just going to stop.
Yeah.
So I take them and I put them down and I stop. And I go through what I would argue to be the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. My mom was there for me. I just crawled the walls of my house for 10 days. I didn't have any meds. I didn't even know what detox was yet at that point. I was just so sick. I mean, whew, boy. I think back to it and I still get the shivers. It was so bad. I was like the Exorcist, just puking and shivering and freezing and sweating, and I couldn't sit still. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just needed a pill, and I knew it would stop. But I was scared because I had watched my mom hit a bottom that freaked me out. So I smoke weed and I drink, and I'm like, I'm just not going to touch those pills. And so life goes on. At this point, my boyfriend, James, gets introduced to the fact that I'm an addict. So he was shocked. He didn't know that the pills I was taking were so serious. And I was very depressed for months after that. I am talking like paralyzed depressed. My sister's wedding, I could hardly enjoy because I was just so nervous. About what? I don't even know. It must have been the chemical balance in my brain, but
well, you take away that like
dopamine, that dopamine blanket
of comfort of like, you talk about like feeling the insecurities and
they're all back.
Yeah, you don't have the drugs to mask it anymore.
They're all back, and so I couldn't smoke enough weed and I couldn't drink enough alcohol to fill the hole the way the pills had. And so that year, 2010 into 2011. I had just graduated college and I'd gotten engaged. James had proposed. His dad was sick with cancer and we were going to plan our wedding. And, I said yes because at the time I was in love with him. And I said yes because that's what I was supposed to do. And I'd watched my sister do it. And you meet the guy and you date him for a few years and you fall in love and then you get engaged. Then you get married, and then. So I don't think I had any malintent when I said yes, but I also was high on opiates because I was taking opiates when I said yes. So it was probably 2010 into 11 that I just substitute taught. I couldn't find a full-time job. I was waitressing. I was smoking and drinking, wasn't working a recovery program, but I went to the dentist in early 2011 and I got prescribed Vicodin. And at the time I had not touched an opiate in almost a year. And so I genuinely had a toothache and a root canal, I think. So I take the Vicodin and man, it was like there was a tiny little flame still burning inside of me, a little one. It was small. But it was just small enough that when that gasoline hit it, it reignited instantly. I mean, I was instantly warm again. I instantly felt like I could do it again. And immediately I thought, I need pills. I need to figure out where I'm going to get pills. It was an instant thought. As soon as I took the first dose, which of course I took double what was prescribed, that bottle was gone in a day. It was supposed to last like a week. It was gone in a day. And I was like, I need more. And at this point, it's 2011. It's a little bit harder to get pills. It's not as easy. I'm not having surgery. So I go back to my old doctor and I do go back on Roxy's. So I don't know how I managed that, but I managed to get put back on Roxy's for ankle pain. Like, I'm going to just go back and see the ortho, this and that. So I land my first teaching job September 2011 in a 7th and 8th grade middle school science class in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And I say yes. I live so far from Brooklyn, I might as well live in Egypt. I'm not joking you. I lived at the time in New Milford, Connecticut, which The closest train is 30 minutes away. And then from there, it's about a 3-hour trip on the train.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm doing it. I was high on opiates. I could do anything.
Yeah.
I could do anything.
I wake up at 2 a.m. and
that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
That is literally what I said. And everyone in my life was like, Aaron, maybe this isn't the right job for you. Just wait. And I was so, again, in a rush to be a grown up and to find the real job and to help people. Because remember, I still want to be a teacher and help people. So I landed the job. And there was 13 new teachers that year in the middle school. Do you want to know why? Because the other 13 ran away screaming the year before that. Because this was a very tough school in a very tough neighborhood. And these kids had very tough lives. And I wish I helped them more. I worked with them only for that year. I myself wasn't very well at the time. I did the best I could. I definitely think I may have helped 1 or 2 kids out of hundreds, because I was a middle school teacher. So I had 8 different periods of 30 kids a day. So that's 240 kids a day. So you're helping a lot of kids every week. But, these kids were gang members and drug dealers and prostitutes and being sex trafficked. And these kids had hard lives. And Ayo Miss from New Paltz, New York, right? I mean, I was 23 years old and high on opiates. But I did the best I could by those kids. I missed a lot of days, so my attendance wasn't great. Shock.
Yeah.
Because I was either high or withdrawing, right? So either I'd be too high and I couldn't go, and I knew I couldn't go, so I just wouldn't. Or I would be withdrawing and need to figure out how to get pills.
Yeah. So during this time, are you like going back and forth into like these 12-step meetings, or are you just
no,
doing your
I
thing?
had tried 12 steps in 2010, but then at this point, I'm not in meetings. No, I'm not.
And your mother's still sober at this time?
Yeah. And so it didn't take my family that long to figure out that I was using again. Because it's not easy to hide.
Yeah.
And
no, it's not. You think you're hiding it.
Right.
But,
Well, and so we'll fast forward to June of 2012. So I get married April 20th, 2012. I have a 250 person wedding and I get married. And I'm high out of my mind. Nobody knows that I'm high out of my mind. I had probably 30 Roxys in my bra and then another 100 in my bag. And so I had a great wedding. It was fun, but I just wasn't capable of marrying someone. Like I had no business doing that. It was wrong because I was in a totally altered state. So how could I possibly look at someone and promise my life to them when I'm altered? So that was April. And in June, things kind of bubble over. And they bubble over for a few reasons. I'm really heavily using at this point, so I'm not going to work. My husband starts tracking my location so he can see I'm not going to work now. He doesn't know why. And I think my doctor cut me off for some reason. I don't remember the reason. I think I smoked weed, and you can't do illicit drugs when you go to the pain doctor. You can use hundreds of Roxys a month, but you can't smoke weed. So long story short, I end up outing myself, or my family says like, what's going on? And my husband, like everyone's kind of like, this is serious. And I'm like, you're totally right. Like I need help. I am like out of control, whatever. I don't even remember the details, but I remember going to detox, right? Like we decide I'm not going to do this at home this time. I'm going to go inpatient detox. And I do. And then I go to rehab and my insurance company gives me 5 days of rehab. So I get 5 days of detox and 5 days of rehab. And then I'm supposed to go to outpatient. So that's insane.
Yeah.
Nobody gets sober from a 500 pill a month habit in 10 days. And no surprise, I didn't stay sober. My husband, I had cheated on. And so he wasn't ready to have me come home after 10 days either. So I had to go stay at my parents' house, which was a big kick to my ego. I prided myself on being independent from them at a young age. And so that was a kick to my ego that I had to go back there. And a few days later, my father-in-law passed away. And that was awful. I was so selfish in my use that, like, I'm not there with my husband when his father dies because I'm staying at my parents' house because I cheated on him because I'm using drugs, right? Like, the whole scenario is extremely painful, and it's not that person's fault. And that's what addiction does, is it just is like a bomb that blows up your life and collateral damages everyone around you. You know, I mean, I stole fentanyl patches from him when he was dying. I terribly hurt his mom, who loved me like a daughter. You know, these are amends that only thing I can do today is live. A living amends. I mean, I've tried making amends the best way I know how, but these are people I hurt. You know, my father-in-law dies, and the same week I relapse. And I relapse because my disease is screaming at me. You know, I'm at the funeral and everybody hates me. And, you know, I felt like I had a scarlet letter on, and the whole town just knew that I was an addict, you know. And I had gone to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and I don't knock the fellowship. I got sober with 12 steps, but I didn't stick with the winners. And I met the wrong guy. And I couldn't get any more pills. And I went over to his house and he poured it out on the table. And I didn't even know what it was. He called it dope. I didn't really know. And it didn't click for me what it was at first. I was so sick and withdrawal that I sniff it. I had never sniffed anything in my life up until that moment. And I instantly felt better. Instantly. And now I'm like, well, what is this stuff? Because now I can't really find my pills anymore. And this stuff works. So what is it? Oh, it's dope. Well, how much is it? Well, I implode my life faster than the Hiroshima bomb. I mean, when I tell you I disappear completely, so no one knows where I am, like calling the police, reporting me missing. I'm homeless. Eventually, my husband takes the car because it's in his name. So I go from a somewhat relatively normal 23-year-old with a new teaching job and a husband and a home and a car and a dog to a homeless, strung out junkie in like a 2-week period. That's a very shocking thing to say out loud, even to this day. And I lived it. You know, when I tell this story, people will look at me and say, you don't look like an addict. And my answer is normally like, well, what does an addict look like?
Yeah.
Because I've seen addicts of all shapes, size, colors, creeds, religions, career paths, from doctors, nurses, and lawyers to prostitutes on the street. It's one and the same. But man, I just imploded it big time fast. You know, I skipped all the steps, whatever the steps are when you become a junkie, I skipped them all.
Yeah.
And just went full on, like, all the way in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I remember watching a girl use intravenously, and I was like, I will never do that. And 2 weeks later, I was doing that.
You always set those, like, goalposts of, like,
I'm not doing that.
I'll never do that. Yeah. And then, you know, when time meets opportunity.
Well, and the first time I ever used intravenously, the person I was using with refused to do it for me. They said, I'm sorry, I won't put someone onto that life. If you want to do it, here's your needle, figure it out yourself. And so I'm like, that's so messed up. Why won't you help me?
Yeah.
Well, I now understand that person was already caught in the throes of a horrible addiction, and they weren't going to help me take my addiction to the next level. Well, I figured it out. And I ended up intravenously using in my neck for a long time. And so my family was horrified. My mom's a nurse. So I'm going home to Christmas dinner with a track mark on my neck, you know, and my family is just terrified of me dying, right? I mean, they're trying everything, and the timeline, it's fuzzy, right? I mean, my husband wanted me back, and I didn't want to go back now, and now I'm like, I don't love you, and I am just so selfishly caught up in addiction that I can't be bothered to love anybody or be responsible to answer to anybody. And my parents, I went to treatment again in August 2012, and I came out and went to their house, and they said, if you do it again, you're not coming back here. I said, okay. Well, guess what? I did it again. And it's not because I wanted to. I really believe in my heart that I was being controlled by something much stronger than me. And spiritually, I was being controlled by darkness. But, physically, the craving for the opioid was just so strong that I just couldn't say no, and I was just in and out of treatment and detox and rehab. And I would go for 10 days and 12 days and 30 days. I mean, I did, 2013, I lived with this girl for a while, and she was an addict, and it was just bad, we just I don't even know how. It was her mother's house, because I'm like, how did we live there for free?
Yeah.
Thinking about it now, I'm like, who was I paying rent to? No one. We were just in a bad way. And so I was sex trafficking. I was, doing what a lot of women do in addiction to support their habit. Oftentimes it's so shameful that no one talks about it. And that just burns me. Because so many women and men, there are just as many men being trafficked as there are women, I would argue. I don't know the statistic, but especially addicts, men addicts, they're very likely to prostitute themselves for their habit. And so I'm not shy about it, because it's a trauma I'm healing from. And it's a trauma because you make a choice somewhere along the way to cross the line, but it's similar to addiction. Once you've crossed the line, when a person pays you a dollar value for your body, they believe that they have the right to do whatever they want because they gave you that 200 or 500 or whatever dollar amount. And so I have lived some things I'm not happy to have lived because of that. But my plan is to take those experiences and write about them and talk about them on my podcast, on your podcast, so women know that they're just, and men, because men are victims also, that there is a place to openly talk about that, and no one's judging you or thinking that you chose it, you crossed a line that you couldn't figure out how to uncross. It's such a simple, it's just like that addiction line.
Yeah.
I crossed that line as an addict somewhere. Don't ask me when. Couldn't tell you when. But once I went there, I couldn't come back. And so 2013, I overdosed once or twice. I didn't need Narcan, but, I had CPR done on me twice. And then the third time I woke up, and I had been laying, and you're a nurse, so you would probably get this, but I had been laying in such a way that I had damaged some of the nerves in my lower leg. And so I had what you would call drop foot or drop leg or something like that.
Yeah.
And, my mom was like, get out of my house, because she was terrified. I would be too. I would think my kid is going to die.
Yeah.
So she's like, get out.
And she's also in recovery.
Right. So she can't help me. Right. Yeah. And so how painful, she got involved in a nonprofit up there called Drug Crisis in Our Backyard. And it was to raise awareness and, train on Narcan. And I think it gave her purpose while I was strung out, that she was trying to give back. But that was a really rough year, 2013 and 2014. I went to treatment a number of times. Don't even ask me how many times in there. So I went to St. Joseph's up in Saranac Lake, New York. It's a 90-day program, phenomenal place. Get kicked out at 72 days for fraternizing with a guy. because I'm also an addict of men, and that guy is dead now. You know, and so like that's how serious this disease is the guy that I got kicked out of rehab over is dead, right? Like he's one of many that I'm sure you know, I know, who just don't make it out. And so it's when they say like these are life and death decisions, they're just so gut honestly true. I mean, him and I made a decision to fraternize at that treatment center, which resulted in both of us being asked to leave. Now, he didn't die the next day, but a year or two later, he died. Had he not been kicked out of treatment and he finished, maybe would he be alive? I don't know. These are some of the things that you think about once you get sober that you're like, wow, why did God choose to save me, right? When there's so many people who don't make it. So 2014, I got arrested for the first time for possession of a hypodermic, which is a misdemeanor.
They arrest you for a needle?
Yeah.
In New York?
Yeah.
Really?
Now, it's a misdemeanor, slap on the wrist, nothing happened.
Yeah.
So
well, some states they give out.
Well, no. And here's where you're like, scratch your head. In New York, they give it out. And then if you use it, it's illegal. So they'll give you the clean one and it's legal because it's a diabetic needle. But the minute you inject drugs with it, it just became a hypodermic.
That's interesting.
So I get arrested. I'm a teacher, so that's a big problem. Getting arrested. The minute you get arrested, the state finds out.
Yeah. So
that's a problem. But at this point, I'm not even working. I had gotten fired from my second teaching job in 2013, called 5th grade in the Bronx. At this point, I'm a heroin addict. By the grace of God, I'm fired for attendance because I'm letting my drug dealer drive my car around the Bronx all day. And I'm on my lunch break and after and before school, I'm shooting heroin in the car with him and going in to work. And I'm not going in there so I can be strung out. I'm just trying not to be dope sick at work.
Yeah.
So it was, and I got fired in September. So I literally worked there for 2 weeks and God was like, nope, out.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to talk about that a little bit is I know people that could watch this podcast and possibly not be an addict or understand the disease of addiction, the difference in, understanding like not being it's not something intentional.
Right.
It's more the obsession and the compulsion of the disease of addiction that even though you want to do these things, you have these aspirations, you want to be a good teacher, you have all these plans, but like the disease of addiction has also got such a strong grips on you to where you're like, I gotta get high. I gotta get high.
Well, and you're physically going to be violently ill if you do not. And so I would try and use not a lot because I had to work, but just enough to not be sick. Right. So if 2 bags got me high, then 1 bag would get me okay. And so thankfully 2 weeks went by, I get pulled into the office and they say, Miss, unfortunately, due to your absences last year, we are going to have to go ahead and terminate you. And of course, I'm heartbroken. This is my career. Thank God. Truly. Yeah. Thank God. God said, no way. Get out of there now before you hurt somebody. And so now I'm full reign. I don't have a job. I have unemployment. That's free money. So I collected unemployment. I worked under the table as a babysitter. And I was a heroin addict. And that's such a horrible combination. And I owe so many people so many amends. Some of them I've made amends to. Some I can't reach. So I've prayed about the amends. But I struggled. And I would go to treatment. And I would try. And I wouldn't try. But I would go to meetings. And I would sometimes get a sponsor even. But I would almost always immediately pick up coming out. There was 1 or 2 times I got like 30 days or 60 days under my belt, but I would almost always use. My final rehab was actually 10 months long.
Wow, that's a hell of a...
So it was early 2015 that I decided to go on methadone.
Okay. The clinic or?
The clinic.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I decided to go like full on to the methadone clinic every day.
Is it still in New York?
I'm still in New York. And I'm in outpatient at the time, and my counselor's drug testing me, and I'm on methadone, and she knows that. But she's saying, and I'm still using heroin because I am. So she says to me, you know, you need to go to long-term residential. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And she's like, but you're going to be on methadone for life. You're like, you need to go to residential. So I'm like, fine, find me a place that takes me. She found one. I'm like, oh, no. So I use as much heroin as I possibly can. And I go to this long-term rehab, and it's Samaritan Village in Queens, Jamaica, Queens, New York. And they take people and they help you get off methadone. It's called a Methadone to Abstinence Recovery Center, so MTAR. And you're there for about a year because it takes a long time to get off methadone. So the first month or two, you just do meetings and groups, but eventually you're allowed to get a job. And I did. I got an internship at a New York City homeless shelter, actually. And it was so cool. I was helping people. I really loved it. I mean, I felt like I understood these women. Like I was one of these women. You know, they're homeless and crazy, but so am I, truthfully. Yeah. The only difference between them and me now is a few years of sobriety. That's it. I'm also homeless and crazy. So I really enjoyed my time working there. And of course, being a drug addict, I decide I'm not going to get off methadone. And they can't force you. So about 6 months in, I say to my counselor, I think I want to get off methadone. He says, okay. He said, you're going to be here another 6 months then. And I said, no, I've already been here for 6. I want to be home by Thanksgiving. He's like, Erin, you shouldn't do that. I said, well, I want to. 10 milligrams a week, take me down. I was on 120 milligrams. So against their own judgment, they allow me to do this. And I go 10 milligrams a week until I'm off. And then I graduate the program the next day. Bad plan.
Yeah, right when you come off.
Right when and I'm in withdrawal still, because you withdraw from methadone for a month.
Yeah.
So bad plan. And I forgot to mention I had gotten arrested right before I went into that program for felony drug sale, because a criminal informant had told me she was dope sick and I sold her a bag or sold her a bundle or something. So I had gotten arrested, and that's part of what I went to that program was I was in trouble. I needed to get this off of me because it's a felony. So I'm going to court while I'm in treatment. And it's working. You know, the judge is most likely going to drop the case as long as I continue to do recovery. So I graduate the program. I finish up my court case. It gets dropped by the grace of God. It's about December 2015. And I get my first bout of bad news, which is this job I want in the homeless shelter. I can't get it yet because of my open felony. They had to wait for the paperwork because the felony had just closed. So what do you think I did after 11 months of not using? One piece of bad news, and I got on the train, went to the Bronx, didn't even have her phone number, walked upstairs into this little old lady's apartment, knocked on the door. She answered, and I said, I need dope. And she said, okay, how much do you need? Nothing had changed. I had not even missed him a year. She's like, I was wondering if you died. But it was as if nothing had changed. So she hands me my bundle. I think I buy 30 bags. So I'm going to relapse once, but I buy 30 bags.
Yeah. Well, you were already in relapse mode anyways, not taking suggestions.
Well, yeah. I wasn't going to meetings. I was in withdrawal for methadone, and something bad had happened.
Still running on self-will, getting out of the program earlier than what's suggested.
Oh, yeah. They wanted me to stay, and I was like, hell no, I want to be home for Christmas. You know, as if that Christmas, I was already high by Christmas. I was already high by Christmas. At this point, I was living with 2 women from the program, and they knew I was high. So it was probably right after, it was right around New Year's. I took a bunch of Seroquel and Xanax, because I couldn't get dope since they knew I was high. and I was like in such bad withdrawal. I end up strapped to the bed in the emergency room in 4-point restraints. Like, I wake up, I come to, I'm like, where the hell am I? And my friends were gone. They had just like left me there. So now I'm in the psych ward. It's New Year's Eve. I'm by myself in the psych ward, and I'm so sick in withdrawal, like just so sick. And I'm begging them for methadone, like begging, please medicate me. They're like, well, you've already been clean for 48 hours, so we're not going to medicate you. So I'm like, can I get an Imodium or something? Like, I'm so sick.
Yeah.
Like, what a horrible New Year's 2015 into 2016 was not my year. So I come out of that place after like 5 days. I go back to their house, and they basically say to me, look, you got to go back to rehab because like you're still not getting it, clearly. And we don't want you to die. And at this point, I don't care if I die. I really don't. So I had been in a long distance relationship with this guy who was originally from my hometown, but he lived in Florida. And all this craziness is going on. And at the same time, he's actually going through something similar. He had overdosed. He was struggling too. So he lived with his mom and grandmother here in Florida, in Jensen Beach. And he says to me, just come to Florida. And so I had 2 choices to make: go to rehab or go to Florida. And I decide, without telling anybody, except these 2 women, I'm going to Florida. And in the dead of winter, in January 2016, I pack a suitcase with all my summer clothes, flip-flops, and a bathing suit, and I moved to Florida. Don't tell my family. Don't say goodbye. 3 days later, they figured it out, and they were pissed. They didn't speak to me for months because I just up and left. I was supposed to go to rehab. I was on the waiting list to go to rehab again. And the good program. I was going to go back to that really good program. And instead I moved here, and I was high within a day of being here. Even though I was 1,000 miles from any drug dealer, I got here, my significant other and his brother were already active, and I just took the money I had in the bank and spent it on drugs in Florida instead. Yep.
Yeah, geographical changes don't work.
I couldn't believe that I moved so far away and I was high already.
Yeah.
And it was even worse here because I didn't know anybody. And so I was way more vulnerable here. I also couldn't make money in my normal fashion because I had a boyfriend now. So I start borrowing money from people who don't give me their permission to borrow it from.
Stealing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, stealing, as in taking what is not yours.
Yeah.
Stealing, yes. And I know in my heart, it's the Holy Spirit. I knew not only was it wrong, I knew that I was going to get caught. I knew it. But I couldn't stop. So every day I would do it, and then I would panic, knowing like they're going to catch me. I just know they're going to catch me. And so 6 weeks went by, and in those 6 weeks, I overdosed. I'm Narcaned in my boyfriend's house. And my first 2 thoughts when I wake up and there's paramedics in my face are, why did you save me? I was actually angry because I was suffering so badly at this point for so many years that I thought, if God was going to take me, then you should have let him. And then my second thought, and I didn't say this out loud because there was cops nearby, is where are the rest of my drugs? Because I want them when I'm done with this bullshit. Pardon my French. And I went to the hospital because if you don't, they Baker Act you. So I went. And then from there, it was February, and I got arrested April 23rd, 2016. I went to work, and about an hour in, the deputy was behind me, reading me my rights and arresting me. And I'm in the car on my way to jail, and
Is this from the stealing?
Yeah. They figured it out. I knew they would. It was an employer, so I knew they would. There's cameras. I mean, like, how it took them 6 weeks is shocking.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was doing my best to hide it, but I knew they would eventually find out. And so I get to jail, and I had never been past the booking area. Like, I'd been arrested 2 other times, so this was my 3rd arrest. But I'd never been past, like, fingerprints. So I'm in the holding cell and I call my friends and I tell them I need $250. I need to bail out. And they're like, sounds like a you problem. And I'm like, wait, what? You guys have $250? And they're like, sorry, fresh out of money. Can't help you. So, I mean, they were doing that to save my life, right?
For sure.
My boyfriend didn't have a pot to piss in, so he couldn't bail me out. And my family certainly wasn't going to bail me out. They weren't even speaking to me. So I went to jail and I didn't like it. I withdrew from heroin in jail. I didn't like it. I figured out I don't like jail. I got desperate enough to surrender, finally. And I just never understood what surrender meant until it was just me and those 4 cinder block walls and the cement bed and the Bible, because that's all they give you. They don't even give you a bra. Ask me about the underwear bra. Ask me. But I opened my Bible to John 14:1, and I printed it in my notebook. Do not let your heart be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. And so, call it a spiritual awakening or just a coincidence, but I needed something because I was freaking out. I'm in jail. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a public defender. I have a felony scheme to defraud, grand theft charge. I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm in Florida. I'm 1,000 miles away from anyone who gives a damn about me, except my boyfriend who did visit me, I gotta say. And we had a very toxic relationship. We were not healthy for one another. But nonetheless, I got my sentence, 5 months and 2 years probation and pay restitution. And I got out August 17th, 2016. Never forget that morning. They let you out at like 4 a.m. You come out, you're like, it's hot as shit out here. Florida. Gotta love it.
And humid. Yeah.
Humid as hell. And you're and you have to put back on the clothes you were wearing.
Yeah.
When you got arrested. So I had to put back on my outfit from like my uniform from work.
Yeah.
And I went to Denny's that morning. I ate like so much food. I was so hungry from like jail food. I just ate everything at Denny's. But, you know, I had made a decision. I joined a program in the jail ran by a woman who was 30 years sober. And, you know, I learned about the program of recovery from the lens of God. And that's just my story. Other people get it a different way, but that's how it worked for me. So when I got out, I got a job at a diner, and all 3 of the other women were in recovery. So all 4 of us went to meetings together. And it was really, there was a core group of 3, me, Dee, and Amber, and we went to meetings, the 3 of us, and they'd be okay with their first names being shared.
So you found the winners this time.
I found the winners.
Yeah.
But what a difference it made, because we weren't alone. So we worked at this diner, and we worked hard. I mean, we didn't have a busser. We didn't have a hostess. We busted butt at this diner, and we ran it. I mean, we kept the inventory, and we opened it and closed it every day, and we cleaned it, and there was someone else cooking the food, but we did everything else. And I met a woman at a nail salon next door who her husband owned a chiropractic office. And she said, I really like your personality. I think you should come and apply. And I went and applied. And I had to check the box that said, do you have a felony for the first time? Because my PO needed to know where I worked. So I had to tell the truth. Gut level honesty, like it or not. And after the interview, the woman texted me and said, you know, my husband's concerned about your background. And he had a reason to be concerned, right? I had just been released from jail, like not that long ago. And I said, well, I can promise you I'm not that person anymore, and give me a chance, you know? But I cried. I'm like, they're not going to hire me. I just knew it. This was a $10 an hour job I'm crying for.
Yeah.
She writes me back and says, my husband believes in second chances. And I still to this day tell them they changed my life, because I got that job and it gave me a purpose, and it gave me the ability to help people. I mean, people that go to chiropractic offices are in pain. And I have met my truest friends working at that place. I mean, my coworkers became my best friends. One of them is I'm doing a podcast with, Strong Moms Club. Another one, I'm best friends with him and his wife. Another one literally is we got call her partner. She's my best friend. These are all people I met working there. And so that place changed my life. And I worked there for 3.5 years or so. And I would have stayed, but I got a better opportunity for my career to become an office manager and an operations manager. And I did that with an e-commerce business. And I truly wanted to stay there forever. They sold Motorola two-way radios. It was a cool little company.
Yeah.
But I forgot to mention that my boyfriend and I made a baby in sobriety in 2019. So we had a bad breakup in 2018. We're both not right for each other. And so things get abusive when we're together. I'll say it like that. And so we started fooling around in 2019 and made a baby. And so COVID happened, and we were blessed enough to rent a house from my boss, a beautiful home. And so we had my daughter, Maddie, in a beautiful home, and we tried our best to be a family, and it didn't work out. And it doesn't work for everybody. But we tried. The disease of addiction hurt our family. Alcoholism really impacted my daughter's father. I believe he's sober now, but we're not meant to be together. Yeah. And so it was March of 2022, and my boss was selling the house that we lived in. And he had to do what he had to do, and so did I. So I knew I was going to need a place. And I knew I couldn't stay with my daughter's father because he was abusive. And I needed to give my daughter a better life. And he needed to get sober. And I even wondered, maybe someday would we get back together? Definitely not. But I wondered. But I moved in with a friend and I got a different job. Working in e-commerce. I work in e-commerce still at that job. I'm the marketing director. I do social media, e-commerce marketing. I've taught myself a lot of what I know. So I figured out like screwing it up and fixing it is my method. But I had a really hard year this past year. And, you know, that I struggle with bipolar disorder. And so I didn't realize that having weight loss surgery last May, I had done a lot of changing, right? I had left Eddie. I had left the job I loved and I still love. Now I get my own apartment in July. I get a promotion to marketing director, which by the grace of God, I get my own apartment, $2,000 a month, but it's for me and my baby. And then I just go into such a bad mental state. I don't even know how I made it. My daughter got kicked out of daycare twice because she wasn't listening, because I wasn't giving her any rules. So she was just running amok. She was responding to the trauma. Her father sued me for custody. So now there's court trauma. That has all now been worked out, but my daughter was responding to that. She's 2 years old at the time. That's a lot for a little kid. You know, I talk to my job. I'm very open with them. I'm thankful that I have a place I can be open with about what my struggles. I mean, I almost didn't have the job. They rescinded the offer when my background check came back. This is a really cool company to work for. I wrote them an email basically saying, please give me a shot. And they did. But, you know, I told them in November I was struggling with some things. And then I went on an antidepressant in December. And unfortunately it worked, but it worked too well. And so in February, I was working 90-hour weeks, staying up all night working, just manic, more manic than ever. And, you know, my job said, you need to take a rest, you know, like we're worried.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that because they were right. I'm actually just going to go back to work on Monday, but I needed these couple of weeks to work with my doctor, get on the right medication, obviously nothing narcotic because I'm an addict, so I don't take narcotics, but I'm always going to be a work in progress. I'm never healed. I'm like, daily reprieved, one day at a time, 24 hours a day, but I am still just as crazier than a bat.
Yeah.
I
it
really
takes
am.
time.
Like they say at 5 years you get your marbles and at 10 years you learn how to play with them or something like that. I didn't even get my marbles back yet. They didn't give them back yet.
Yeah.
But it's been such a wild ride. Now I'm in a great relationship. My boyfriend, Steven, has a 7-year-old daughter. So we're really like a family now, the 4 of us. And we're starting businesses together and founding a nonprofit, planning a really big summit in January. Going to have some celebrities there. I'm writing a book. So I'm doing a lot. I'm probably doing way more than I should be.
Yeah.
But I'm an addict, so I do things big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't do things small.
Yeah.
And, when people try and fit me in a box, I don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
I lost 150 pounds this past year. So I have a lot of extra skin I'm not happy with. But I am happy with feeling healthier for my daughter and being able to chase her down the, street and not run out of breath after 5 seconds. So much change has happened that I have a lot to process still.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a therapist I'm going to start working with. I'm redoing my steps with my sponsor again. I'm starting to sponsor women for the first time. So I'm just now starting to give back what was given to me. And that's after 7 years because I was still crazy. I still am crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got a big part of your recovery has been in the pandemic too. Yeah.
Which is such a weird time to do recovery, because like meetings are virtual, but honestly, virtual meetings are cool. I go to this virtual NA meeting, it's got 200 people on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people. Yeah. And you're talking about a lot of changes, with change is usually always a raw state and it does take time. They have like your head pops out of your ass at 5 years and stuff, like all these different sayings. But the reality is it took me a long time to be comfortable in the moment. That's just a process that it takes.
Yeah.
You go so long with suppressing like emotional growth and all these different experiences in your life that, it takes time and it's a process in recovery. And you just get little fragments at a time.
Yeah.
You don't.
That's why they say keep coming back.
Yeah. Right.
And my favorite, more will be revealed because it's true. I'm going through the big book and I study both. I study NA and AA and both texts. When I reread them again, I learned something new that I didn't know before. And I've read these books now a number of times. I've been to 20 rehabs.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rehab. I had 3. I actually am about this close to being a certified addiction professional.
Yeah.
I did all the classes. I just need to take the test. So it's just interesting to me. It's fascinating. The disease of addiction is fascinating. Mental health is fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think most of us have a diagnosis. Whether we're diagnosed or not is another story.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us struggle with something. And even if it's just life, I think we can all relate to the same feelings. And feelings aren't facts.
Yeah.
That's one of my faves.
Yeah. It's a fact you'll feel, but your feelings aren't facts.
Right. And then in early recovery, that's just so hard.
Yeah.
In late recovery, it's still hard. Sometimes when I'm feeling some kind of way, ask my boyfriend. It is a fact that I feel like that.
Yeah.
And it's most of the time made up in my head. Most of the time, it's my own insecurity or my own mental health issue.
Be careful though; they're full.
Am I going to spill this
it's a
on camera? No.
Yeah, it's so full.
Anybody that knows me knows I'm very clumsy, and I'm not opening that on camera.
It'll be all over you then.
No, I'm not that thirsty. Yeah. I can wait.
Well, it's a pleasure. You say you have a book coming out, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. You'll have to follow me on social. The name of my brand is Saltwater Serenity Co.
And that's on...
That's on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I do have a podcast coming out called Unapologetic and Strong Moms Club, 2 podcasts. And also have a brand for the family members, a support group. It's It's called Next Level _ Recovery Spot. So Next Level Recovery Spot's going to be for the families, of the addicts and the people struggling. And Saltwater Serenity Co. is going to be for those sick and suffering. And then let me not forget to mention Transformation Summit 2024. That is founded on a nonprofit called Transition to Transformation. It's going to be held in Orlando, most likely, with 2 or 3 big celebrities. I can't tell you who yet. And it's going to be a Friday night, all day Saturday, and a Sunday morning summit, rally, awareness, mental health, speakers, addiction speakers.
Almost like a convention.
Kind of like a convention that I'm putting on, but it's to raise money for my nonprofit. So I'm the board president of Transition to Transformation. The goal of that nonprofit is to open and make available treatment to those who can't afford drug and alcohol treatment. So a portion of all the proceeds will go to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. You have an amazing story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You rock.